what we usually get. I didn't either.
Watching for his thumbs up. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary DeVries, and I am the Executive Director of the Wolfeboro Area Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, we're very pleased to be able to present the 18th Annual Candidates Forum in Wolfeboro. And I want to offer a big thank you to Wolfeboro Community Television. They are taping this forum tonight live, and it will be airing on YouTube and on Channel 25 Atlantic Broadband from between tonight and the vote on March 10th. So thank you, Wolfeboro Community Television. And this forum, all these years, would not be possible without our moderator, Randy Walker with Walker and Varney. And Randy has donated his services every year to be the moderator for our forum, and we really appreciate that very much. So thank you, Attorney Walker.
Thank you. This Candidates Night is sponsored by the Wolfeboro Area Chamber of Commerce, and we always appreciate it when Mary is here. She is their effervescent and perennial executive director, always does a nice job putting this together. And even though we don't have a lot of people in the audience this evening, which is a little disappointing, we do have this on TV, so if there is any participation, we would like everybody up front to make sure they talk into a microphone, and if anyone has questions that they would like to ask, we can use one of the microphones at this end. For the record, all candidates that were in contested elections were invited to come, and they all did take advantage of that. So we do have 5 candidates. Let me introduce them to you. Running for the supervisor of the checklist, we have 2 people running for 1 position. We have Jeannie Mitchell. We have Tom Zotti, who's the incumbent. We have 3 people running for 2 selectman positions. We have Luke Freudenberg, who is a former selectman. He is running against Linda Murray, who is an existing selectman, and against Dave Senegal, who is also an existing selectman. Members of the Wolfeboro Chamber of Commerce were invited to submit questions, many of which I will ask tonight. If anyone in the audience desires to ask a question of any of the candidates, feel free to write it down and give it to me, or if you'd like to just ask it directly, we can have you participate as well. Our purpose this evening is to provide the candidates with an opportunity to tell us a little bit about themselves and their position on various issues and what their vision for the community is. That'll be a little tougher for the supervisor of the checklist, who we have very few questions for, and I've alerted them to that. Most of the night will be focused on these 3 selectman candidates on the end. For those candidates that don't get elected, we would encourage you to continue to serve in other capacities from a selectman end. Whichever one of you is not successful, we have lots of committees that can always use good qualified people, and from the supervisor of the checklist, we can always use an extra set of hands on election day. So with that introduction, there are 5 simple rules that we'll follow this evening. The first is that each candidate will start off with a little introduction, spend a few minutes, tell us about yourselves, and issues that you may find important and things that you're passionate about. 2, this is not a debate. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to have a civil, neighborly, collegial, friendly exchange of ideas. We all come as friends, and we all want to leave at the end as friends. And number 3, any question that's asked of any particular candidate will be able to be asked by all the candidates. So any question posed to one, you'll each have the opportunity to answer that question. And if you would like to respond to something that another candidate has said, just raise your hand and we'd be happy to have you respond to that. After an hour and 20 minutes, if we have not run out of questions by then, we will then provide all the candidates with an opportunity to spend a few minutes and make some closing remarks. So the goal is that we will be here no later than 7 o'clock when we lose our TV time. And then finally, please all remember to vote on March 10th. Right here in the town hall will be open from 8 in the morning to 7 at night. It is a long day for the supervisors of the checklist, the ballot clerks, the selectmen, and all of us to participate. So when you do come, please bring your driver's license and make sure you can get through the line as fast as you can. So with that, why don't we start with introductions, and we'll start on the far end with Dave Senegal. You'd like to spend a few minutes, Dave, and tell us about yourself, and then we'll walk right down the table.
Sure. Dave Senecal. I moved here after graduating from the University of New Hampshire in 1963. I spent 28 years on the Budget Committee before running for selectman. I've been the selectman for 2 terms. Obviously, I've been in the public eye for many years. I enjoy it. I like giving back to this community. I came here as a young child, 1950, and spent summers here. And we spent summers down on Oakwood Road for many years as a child. So I know a lot of people in town since I was a young man, and certainly having worked in different areas here in town. I've been employed here in town until I retired 2 years ago. And I also ran my own business for 20 years. And would like your vote. I'd like to continue doing what I've been doing, enjoy it. We have a good group of selectmen in this town and budget committee that are relatively easy to work with most of the time. We don't always agree, and that's fine, but we still maintain friendships amongst all of us.
All right, thanks, Dave. Linda?
Thank you, Randy, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this candidates forum. I'm running again for the position on the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen to give back to the community where my husband and I have worked. We have raised 3 children, and now we have 5 grandchildren here. I support Wolfeboro being a community that takes care of each other. I value Wolfeboro's natural assets, such as mountain views, lakes, farmlands, and forests. I support a vibrant business community and know firsthand what it takes to make a living in Wolfeboro. I will bring a unique perspective to the Board of Selectmen because I have connections with a number of generations in town. As a selectman, I will bring a strong work ethic, institutional town knowledge, consensus building skills, an understanding of sound financial policy, and a willingness to move this town forward. Please vote for Linda Murray on March 10th.
Thank you, Linda. Luke?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you to the Chamber for having this event and the citizens for showing up here tonight. I wanted to start off by saying that, I have a profound respect and admiration for both Linda and Dave, who I've sat next to for 3 years when I was on the board from 2015 through 2018. They both truly cherish the town and the dedication to the town, and really inspired me in my 3 years in running. And I remember Linda saying on election day a couple of years ago, you'll be back, you're going to miss it. And 2 years later, I'm back, and I did miss it. I miss being involved. I'm currently involved as a member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and I truly value being involved in local government and serving here in Wolfeboro. I own 3 businesses here in town, Northeast Dock and Barge, Winnipesaukee Flags, which I purchased 2 years ago, and I am involved in the business community. I employ, upwards of 10 people during the season, and I see that there's a lot of value in continuing in public service. I grew up here, went to Carpenter and high school here, went to UNH undergrad, and got a graduate degree down in Washington, D.C., and returned back here 11 years ago and started a company because I wanted to be in no other place than in Wolfeboro to enjoy the lake and be part of the community. And since then, you know, I've coached, I've served on the Board of Selectmen, for the Zoning Board, and for the last 2 years, I've been a dorm parent and coach at Brewster Academy, where I live. I look forward to this election and March 10th, and I ask for your support and your vote, and will do everything I possibly can to, you know, help the business community here in town. I believe it's vibrant, but it can grow, and Wolfeboro should be a friendly, business-friendly place for all businesses, and obstacles should be removed where they can be. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Lou. Tom.
My name's Tom Zotti. I can't claim to have lived here as long as some. I moved here in 1987, although time does go by. A little less than a year ago, after having served as a ballot clerk over several years and several elections, an opening became available on the supervisors of the checklist after retirement. And I expressed some interest and had the good fortune to be appointed till at least this election. In that year or so, I've been able to attend a number of trainings, both from the State Attorney General's office and the Secretary of State's office, who obviously have a lot of interest in the voting process in New Hampshire. I've also been able to do the job for approximately 11 months and start to learn the ins and outs and so forth. And at the end of the day, I would appreciate your vote to allow me to continue to serve in the position and give something back to the town. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Jeannie?
Thank everyone for coming tonight, and thank the Chamber for sponsoring this. And my husband being stationed at Pease Air Base is what brought our family to Lee, New Hampshire from Pennsylvania in 1973. From Lee, we moved to Madbury, South Berwick, Maine, and Middleton before finally settling in Wolfeboro in 1984. While living in Middleton, I was elected to the school board and was active in the local 4-H. In Wolfeboro, I have sung with the Clear Lakes Chorale and appeared on stage with the Village Players, both wonderful organizations, and I've enjoyed them for several years. I retired in 2011 from an administrative assistant position in the history department at the University of New Hampshire, where I worked for 37 years. Now I work as a substitute at our beautiful new library, which everyone has to go see. I am running for office because I want to become involved, to make a difference, and to help people. Voting is a very important part of our lives, and helping people to register to vote sounded good to me. I enjoy helping people, and that was one of the benefits at UNH and now at the library. And I hope I will have your vote. Thank you.
All right, with those introductions, I have a number of questions. The first one is from a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'll start with you, Linda, since we had Dave start off on the introductions. And the question is this: would you be in favor of establishing and funding an administrative facility manager position and department tasked to oversee all building operations, as well as coordinating the upkeep and repair with department heads, keeping in mind that we own a hockey rink, a police station, a fire station, a library, a town hall, and many other buildings, and that we have had some recent problems such as the water leak in the town hall. So what would be your position regarding having an administrative facilities manager?
We have looked at restructuring the Public Works division in the town. We are right now doing a study to look at how you would spread some of the job descriptions out over a number of people. I've supported asset management plans. I believe we do need to take care of our facilities, and I think a facilities maintenance person would be a plus to the community. I'd have to weigh that out with where the budget was. I might want to do it, put it in first as a part-time position. We have some buildings that we have our department heads watching over. This building is watched over by or managed by our planning department. And I think if we had somebody overseeing it who was skilled and had the knowledge, it would allow us to take better care of our building. But again, it's a balance with the budget. What can we spend our money on? And is that the most important position that we might need to add? I'm concerned about maybe we need to add a position in the finance department. But I think that's a goal and a direction that I would like to see the town move in.
Luke?
It's an excellent question. You know, I think that we're pretty unique in Wolfeboro. Our Public Works Department does not only a great job, but we do a lot of things in Wolfeboro that many other towns don't take on themselves and hire out. That being said, we do have an infrastructure now that has been greatly enhanced with obviously the renovation of the town hall and the new library, and you know, it's definitely an area that should be looked at. You know, upkeep of any structure, any facility is just as important as, you know, the building of it and the initial purchase price. And we're talking about, you know, maybe doing the Libby Museum over, and you know, taking care of what we have, the structures that we have is critical, and early, you know, obviously early prevention and mitigation when it comes to anything that could potentially be happening is key. So I'd be open to looking at the position. You know, obviously, you know, budget issues are always a concern, and tax rates a concern, and how much we're spending as a town is, you know, obviously a concern to the taxpayers. So it has to be balanced out, you know, and I agree with Linda. Maybe it could be a part-time position initially, and see how it fits in with the rest of the Public Works Department. And if we already have somebody doing some of it, maybe department heads doing other parts of it, and with the completion of the asset management plan, you know, I think you'll be able to identify where there are deficiencies in different buildings, and, you know, a schedule for repair replacement. So that's my position.
Yeah, as Linda mentioned, we've been trying to put together an asset management plan, which is taking all of our buildings and do evaluations on them and figuring out what the timelines are for, say, roof replacement or utilities within the buildings, whether it be electrical or plumbing, furnaces, those kinds of things. Once we have something like that, we can then allocate funds each year into a reserve fund, which we have already established. But the things show up quickly, even on new buildings like this one. We've had some issues here. We've had some issues in some of our other buildings. Like we're looking into the new fire station, police station building. Those are all things that we need to keep well aware of as far as maintenance. We have some of those things already in place with the highway department. In fact, like replacing vehicles. The same with the fire department. They have a capital reserve fund for replacement of vehicles. The same thing with our buildings. We need to have and know what things are coming to the end of their life, so we know what we need to replace them with as far as funds. But yes, I'm in favor of, as Linda said, a part-time person, which we've talked about at different meetings in the past.
All right. So the second question that I've got from a member of the Chamber of Commerce is that the total tax rate in Wolfeboro is $15.84 per thousand, while Tuftonboro's is $10.11. Why is the tax rate 57% higher than Tuftonboro, and do you plan to get our taxes more in line with our neighboring town? And Luke, we'll start with you.
It's an excellent question. You know, you're really comparing apples to oranges there. Tuftonboro is a much smaller community, doesn't have nearly the services that Wolfeboro has. Like I said before, our Public Works Department does so much more in Wolfeboro. We have a vast infrastructure. We have public restrooms. We have 5 museums that are open to the public in this town. We have a library that is a large facility. And we do offer an array of services that Tuftonboro does not have. We have a Parks and Recs department. We have Abenaki Ski Area, the Pop Whalen, and we offer a lot of different services to the people here in Wolfeboro. A tax rate's always important, and can it be managed better? Of course, I think the board's done an excellent job over the years, balancing that out. And the voters in Wolfeboro have voted time and time again to expend money on projects. They see the value in it, and they see the value in being the place where people want to come. We're a tourist area, and our infrastructure and our facilities need to be top-notch to bring people in so they can spend money in our town at our businesses. That's what makes a vibrant community. I think between the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen, over the years, they've cut where they could. Can further cuts be made? Of course. There's always room for improvement. There's always places to find extra funds. I mean, from a personal point of view, I think there are some facilities here in town that we don't use as much. The old electric department building on Laner Street, the fire substation out on Route 109. Those are buildings that maybe could come off the tax roll, could be rented, could be leased potentially. There are areas of cost savings out there, but I think the board does a pretty good job, and the Budget Committee does a pretty good job. And those two towns are very different towns.
Dave?
Yeah. Wolfeboro and Tuftomoro, as Luke said, is apples and oranges. We have a $27 million budget, including our enterprise funds, water, sewer, electric, and Pop Whalen. Those are all enterprise funds. In other words, money comes in and goes out. You pay your electric bill, your water, sewer bill, and at Abenaki you pay for ice time. So there is quite a difference between the two towns. I don't believe we'll ever get down to $10 for a tax rate. I mean, that's just impossible unless we stop supplying the infrastructure that people seem to want and vote for year after year. So I don't see that there is really no comparison between the two.
Linda?
Yep. Dave, I agree with you. There is no comparison between the town of Tuftonboro and Wolfeboro. Just look at the police department that we need. We are the center for 4 of the Governor Wentworth regional schools. We need the fire protection for them. So are there areas that we can cut? I think we work at that all the time. This year, the total budget increase was 0.15%, and the general fund, which is the fund that affects the tax rate, the increase over 2019 was 1.13%. The staff starts it. They work hard to keep the budget down, followed by cuts made by the town manager, then cuts made by the Board of Selectmen, and finally cuts made by the Budget Committee to bring a budget in that, one, the taxpayers can afford and provides the government that the citizens need and services. So I believe that I have good financial policies. I spend a lot of time looking at the budget. If you come to any of the selectmen's meetings, you'll see that I will have questions on our monthly budget report. We get capital asset reports telling us where we are, how we're doing in spending our warrant articles, and have that report, and those are done at public meetings so the public knows. I agree with Luke. We need to look at some of our buildings, and Laner Street is a perfect one. Is where are we going with the electric building in the community center? And you'll see on this year's warrant there are a petition warrant article from Girl Scouts who have designed the electric building as a community center, and I hope you all can can watch the deliberative session where they did that presentation. It was just outstanding, and it shows the next generation growing. So I believe keeping the tax rate down and keeping it from growing, but we still need to provide services, and that's the difference between Tuftonville and Wolfeboro, is the number of services Wolfeboro needs to provide and the services that Tuftonboro does.
All right, thank you. Dave, we'll start you off with this question. And what do you think should be done with the Winnipesaukee Hill Estates subdivision? That's the subdivision on the Wolfeboro Town line. It's a private road in there. The road's in not good shape. The developer has filed for bankruptcy. Some of the people in the subdivision have petitioned to have the road taken over by the town and get assessed a betterment fee to have that bonded, and they would pay it back. The town is owed, I think, $150,000 to $200,000 in back taxes, which it hasn't collected yet. What's your position on that, and what would you like to have seen done with that subdivision up there?
Well, I think we had a in-kind thing that was going to go through, and it was, I think, one of the parties within the subdivision wouldn't sign off on it, so that went kind of by the board. I believe right now we have an interest in all the lots that are in there as far as for back taxes. Whether we want to be in the real estate business or not, I guess that's something we're going to have to decide very shortly. As far as the road, the betterment assessment, we've had really good luck with that over the years in a couple of different subdivisions. So I think that's the best way to handle that.
Linda?
Yes, Dave is right. We had a developer who was willing to develop the vacant lots. So we would give them the vacant lots. He would fix the road and bring it up to town standards, and we needed everybody in Winnipesaukee Estates to vote in favor of it, and we had one that didn't, so that petition warrant article went down the drain. It is a struggle for us. I agree with Dave, a betterment assessment is the way to go, but we have to weigh out, if we take those lots, do we sell them? Do we want to be in the real estate business, the town? Will we get enough money to pay for the road? One thing I do know, driving down that road, it's unbelievably bad. I don't think I've ever been on a road as bad as that one. So I think the town needs to come to conclusion on how we're going to address it. Things that we've tried just hasn't worked out. What we really would like to find is a developer who'd like to develop those lots and fix the road.
Yeah, Luke?
I was actually on the board during that time, and there was one holdout, and literally the whole thing could have fell apart for one person that held out on it. The board was ready to move forward with it, and unfortunately that one person held out, and the road is still the way it is, and it's terrible to drive up and down, and hopefully something can be done, and they could bring it back to the board again at some point with a new developer that wants to take it on, and hopefully that one holdout is no longer a holdout.
All right, the next question, we'll start off with you, Linda. It's, do you like the way that the Budget Committee operates? It was noted that in a number of the recommendations, the Selectmen and Budget Committee were not always perfectly in sync, close, but not perfectly in sync on a number of the warrant articles. Is there a better method that we can use, a better approach between the Selectmen and the Budget Committee?
I think I really support having a budget committee, and I said it before, take a look at the number of people that work on it. You start with the staff. They tell us what they need. Town manager makes cuts to what the staff brings forward. We make some cuts, and then there's a whole new set of eyes on it, and there are about, I believe, 8 on the budget committee. 9? They go through it line by line after the Board of Selectmen has gone line by line. And I think by the time we're done, we have flushed out all the whatever you want to say, the extra items in the budget, and we're down to what the town needs in order to provide the services. No, we don't always agree. And I don't think you, as citizens, would want to have all the Board of Selectmen always agree, or the Budget Committee. You want people to ask questions, you want differing ideas, and when you see a warrant article and it might say 5-3 on the Budget Committee, it may help you take a better look at that and get some answers on exactly what we are asking for. And I think that is good and healthy for a town to have, and I totally support having a Budget Committee.
Yeah, Luke?
It's an excellent, checks and balances when, that piece, when the budget goes through all those different hands, from the departments to the town manager, through the board, and then to the budget. And I, sat as the selectman's representative on the Budget Committee for 3 years, and I mean, literally it is line by line. And what you get at the end of it is, I think you get a comprehensive set of eyes that have gone through this now 3 times or 4 times. And I think it gives the voters Budget Committee's frugal in a lot of ways, and they want to see the 5-year average on every single thing, every line item, whether it's a $180 travel line item or, a $30,000 vehicle line item. And they go through it line by line, and, they did put an extra set of eyes on it, like Linda said, and it's a great part of our town government, and it provides for a lot of people reviewing that budget before it gets sent to the voters for approval, and I think it gives a lot of confidence that that many people spend that much time on it before it gets to the voting public, and whether it gets voted up or down at that point, at least that it's been gone through thoroughly.
Dave?
Yeah, the Budget Committee is, like I said earlier, I was on it for 28 years before I ran for selectman, and it's quite I don't know if you call it a conglomeration of people from different areas, different walks of life, and everything is looked at individually, line by line. I don't know if you've ever seen the books we have. They're probably about this thick that we go through line by line, both the selectmen, as Linda said, the town manager, then the selectmen, then the Budget Committee. We don't always agree, not on everything, but most of the time we do. And as I said, I don't think any of us have any hardship with each other. At the end of the day, we all have the same interests, and that's the town.
All right, we'll move on to some of the articles themselves. And I'm going to start with Article 11, which is the Cary Beach Parking Lot and Water Quality Improvement Bond. It was for $450,000. The purpose was for parking lot, roadside, and beachfront construction work was to be completed in order to do stormwater and water quality impacts at Cary Beach. I noticed the selectmen recommended it on a vote of 4-1. And if you would comment on what's your position on that article, and why is it bonded and not just being expensed when it's $450,000? And we can start with you on that one, Luke. Sure.
Lake Wentworth, Cary Beach and Winter Harbor, there's been water quality issues in Winter Harbor for the last couple of years. Cary Beach has obviously had issues with duck itch and various bacteria issues over the years. The stormwater that comes down Forest Road and off of Percy Drive, has been an issue as it enters Whitegate and the small streams down there. Winter Harbor and Cary Beach is a vital part to our lakefront community, and the water quality there is important. The parking lot and beach down there is heavily used during the summer by both residents and guests and visitors to Wolfeboro. It could definitely use improvement, and I completely support the article.
Dave?
Yeah, I also support the article. It has to do with the drainage all the way from North Main Street down to Cary Beach and onto the beach and on into the lake. We had a cyanobacteria alert there last year and the year before. So yeah, I'm in favor of it. Whether it's bonded or paid for, I was actually at the beginning in favor of paying for it in 1 year and have it done, pay cash, have it done and over with. Board of Selectmen moved along and we decided to bond it rather than pay for it in 1 year. But I think it's an important project and should be done this year.
Linda?
Yes, I definitely support this warrant article. The question of whether it should be bonded or cash, each year the Board of Selectmen puts out about $2 million in cash warrant articles. And I took a look at the number of articles and some of the costs that we had, and I felt that I would like to spend our cash for something else and that this made sense to bond it. And Dave spoke about bonding it for 5 years, which made sense for us to do it in that manner. This is a significant piece of property for the town. We've had the cyanobacteria problems, and it's part of Wolfeboro trying to address water quality. The quality of our lakes are very important to us. It's an economic driver, and the impact of a cyanobacteria outbreak is significant. So the other thing the Board of Selectmen did was to establish a cyanobacteria committee. This year we came up with protocols if we have a cyanobacteria outbreak in the lake. We have a committee that's assessing. We had people out in Winter Harbor, Wolfeboro Bay, Back Bay, Crescent Lake, Wentworth, testing the waters and getting samples to know the phosphorus levels and oxygen levels in our water. We have another subcommittee on that cyanobacteria committee is communication. They're going to put up, we're hoping by March, a website that will put information out on cyanobacteria, and this warrant article is under our prevention. This is one of the ways that we can prevent all the phosphorus in that Cary Beach area filtering into the lake. We do have other issues up above because it's like a bowl, and up at Cricket Hill and Partridge, it just rolls down the hill. We have a project that was a 2019 project, was to do drainage up on Partridge, and that has been delayed on permitting, but we're going to get that done, and the Cyanobacteria Committee will keep on working at addressing runoff to keep our waters of the highest quality.
All right, thank you. This question, Dave, will start with you. We'll stick to Cary Beach, but we'll move to Article 34, which is the petition warrant article, which seeks to restrict the usage of Cary Beach to residents of Wolfeboro, their families, and guests. And the petition directs the selectmen to make any other rules necessary to carry out the intent. What do you think about usage of Cary Beach in that petition warrant article?
Well, I happen to be in favor of the warrant article. I think the reason is that Cary Beach is the smallest beach that we have of the 3 beaches, the other 2 being Albany and Brewster, where there is plenty of parking. Well, not so much at Albany, but certainly at the other beaches. I think that because of the issues that we have at Cary Beach with the drainage coming down the hill and what we want to do there this year, I'm in favor of it being a residents and guests only beach.
Linda?
Well, I fluctuate back and forth on this, on whether we want to make it just residents or whether we want to look at charging for parking that might move some of the out-of-town visitors off to the Wentworth Strait Park, which is another place that they could go to swim. I've done a lot of thinking, and as I think about it, I will vote in favor of this warrant article. The Board of Selectmen will have the authority based on the warrant article to put the regulations. There were regulations in place in 2016. They had been there for a number of years. I was on the board. We took them off. In fact, I spoke in favor of removing them because I had looked at our beaches as part of what our town is. We're part of a Governor Wentworth Regional School District, and I thought it made sense to allow the different towns to use our beach. beaches, we definitely are having crowding problems. And I think because of that, it makes sense for us to put some kind of restrictions on those beaches.
Luke?
I'm not in favor of restricting the public from using any of Wolfeboro's beaches or any property. I feel like we are a tourist community, and many of our funds, many of our businesses here, including mine, is tourist-driven. And we bring people to this town, and they spend money in our hotels and our restaurants, and really make it possible so that we can do what we do here, and they pay our property taxes to some extent. But I believe visitors and people coming to Wolfeboro should be blessed to use the things that we have here and we provide here for everybody, and that would mean Cary Beach as well. That's my position.
And just following up on that regarding the Albee Beach, there's a petition similarly intended, but they've watered down in the petition those that could use it. It wouldn't be restricted just to Wolfeboro residents, but would expand it to taxpayers. We all have people that come up, have summer places that may not be on the water, that do pay taxes. Are you in favor of the Albee petition, which is a watered down version? You can be quicker on this one because we've already addressed it a little bit with Cary Beach. And why don't we start off with Linda on that?
Yeah, the Albee Beach petition warrant article I like better than the Cary Beach because it's more inclusive for those people who are going to be able to use it, and it deals with residents, guests, motels, people coming off the Bridge Falls path. And what in Albee Beach, what we seem to have the issue with is the parking. And last year, the Board of Selectmen put a restriction that buses couldn't use that parking lot. I'm kind of thinking for Albee Beach, what would make sense is if we charge to park. Now, residents and guests could use their dump sticker, and I'd be tempted to put $10 for an adult and $5 for each child, because the state park charges $4 and $2. And what I would like to see is those people who usually come from out of town who come to use Albee Beach would be kind of drifting back to the state park where they used to go. And so I think there are many ways that we can restrict people using our beach or lessen the number on our beach and still not exclude them from Wolfeboro. And I think Luke has a good point. We are a tourist community and we need to be welcoming, but I will support both of these warrant articles.
Luke?
The same position on Albee. We prefaced that, I was just thinking about what Linda just said. I don't have a problem with potentially charging for parking or even charging a small fee if a non-resident wants to get a sticker to go to the beaches, so that some money comes back into, for a use fee or whatever, something like that for one of the beaches. I just don't want to be restrictive to anyone that's coming to Wolfeboro for any reason, in using what we have here.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm personally not going to vote in favor of this particular warrant article. I think that Albee Beach is restricted, as Linda said, by the parking lot itself. The beach is much bigger than any of our other beaches as far as size. We have a complete set of restrooms there that I use. It's pretty much, most of it's ADA compliant, which we're starting to get into. You'll see in the warrant article with Cary Beach that we have an ADA ramp that will go right into the lake. So I'm not in favor. If it gets voted in, the selectmen will have to make restrictions on it, and if that happens, then I'll deal with it that way.
All right, well, on to the supervisors. We do have a couple of questions for you. One of the questions I was asked to ask is, how's your stamina? I'm going to blend a couple of these. The election day is a long, long day. We start at 7:30 in the morning usually. The polls open at 8, go at least until 7 at night, and then we have to count. So one of the questions, how's your stamina? And what's your attention to detail, making sure that names are spelled exactly. So if you get John Smith and John J. Smith Jr. coming in, important distinctions between father and son and mother and daughter sometimes. So could you just touch on those, attention to detail and your stamina? We'll start off with, how about you, Jeannie? Yeah, closest.
Well, you have to, I understand.
Yeah, pull your mic up if you would, just a little bit.
When someone comes in, you have to have a proper ID, so you would check the ID on the person to be sure that you have the right name, and then look at that. And I think I have enough stamina. I used to drive back and forth to Durham, New Hampshire for quite a while. So yeah, I think I could last through the day, election day.
Tom?
Well, I think attention to detail is very important. We have run into a few situations where misspellings of voters' names and so forth have been pointed out to us. Not often, but it happens. Usually it's very obvious why. It's a punctuation mark got inserted into someone's middle name or something. It's certainly correctable, as is most of what we do, especially if it's called to our attention by the voter in question and so forth. So I guess to recap, yes, it's important, and I think it's hard to quantify, but for the amount of data entry we do, and it's a big part of the job, I think the typographical errors, if you will, are very few and far between. As far as stamina goes, yeah, it is a long day, but to be honest, it's enjoyable. I found, in my experience, it kind of comes in waves. It's busy at the beginning, get a little bit of a break, lunchtime gets busy again, a little bit of a break in mid-afternoon, and then it picks up again towards the end. If you've spent any time here on election day, you'll know that Pat Waterman and her crew take good care of us meal-wise for lunch and so forth, so it actually makes it an enjoyable day. But yeah, stamina is a part, and by the end of election day, you're at 100% concentration doing processing new voters and so forth, and making other changes, because it's a long day. It's tiring, but it's rewarding in the end.
So you touched on data entry, and that's very important for a supervisor or checklist. How are your computer skills? You want to start with that, Tom, and we'll come over?
Sure. I won't claim to be an expert by any means, but I've been computer literate, if you will, for 20-odd years now. The state of New Hampshire uses a management system, I guess I'll call it, called ElectionNet. We've had a number of trainings on it. It's actually functional. It may not be the most user-friendly thing in the world, but it does the job. Once you get the hang of it, it's you can move right along. It's the system we use, for example, when we register new voters to enter them into the database, when people move from another town in New Hampshire to Wolfeboro and document their new domicile and so forth. We're able to capture their records from the other town and, if you will, steal them for Wolfeboro. And it also happens in reverse if somebody moves away and becomes a resident somewhere else. Again, I'll never claim to be Bill Gates, but we get it done.
Jeannie?
Yes, well, yes, I'm very used to a computer, and I was told that everything is done now on a computer, and it would take time to learn how to do it, but I'm not afraid of a computer. When I worked at UNH, gosh, I was there with the transition between a typewriter to a computer, and they kind of just brought them in and sat them down and said, here it is, work on it. So yes, I'm not afraid of computers, and I think I'd be easy, well, I wouldn't say it'd be easy to learn, but I would definitely be enthused to learn.
All right, thank you. So we'll go back to the selectmen. Luke, we'll start off with you. On the Libby Museum Capital Reserve Fund, Article 12 seeks to set aside about $300,000 for the purpose of renovating, expanding, and repairing Libby Museum. And again, it's just a capital reserve. What are your thoughts on that capital reserve fund for the Libby Museum?
I support a capital reserve fund for the Libby Museum. And I support that warrant article. The Libby's obviously been in our history for a long time. It's another one of those assets that's pretty unique, and one of those things that separates us from Tuftonboro once again. There's a lot of summer programs there for kids, and it's someplace we all go to. And me and my wife took my stepchildren and her children to the Libby this year for the first time, and I hadn't been there since I was a kid, and it's exactly the same. And it's a unique part of Wolfeboro. That said, I know there's further discussion and potential for Libby maybe to become more of a year-round facility that could cost potentially a lot more money. I don't know if spending more than $1 million, or there's going to be a number out there where, for years, for 100 and something years, the Libby's run a certain way, and it works nicely the way it is. Do improvements need to be made to it? Of course. I think the board has done improvements, voiced and had people come in, did studies. Dave Ford worked on it when I was on the board, and there were improvements done. Continuous work should always be done to all of our buildings, including the Libby. I just am hesitant to go beyond that, and I worry about $1 million project, $2 million project, and the continuous upcare if we turn into a year-round building with heating and air conditioning. I hope to see it improved and to the structural things be taken care of and enhanced, but beyond that, I'd be cautious on our approach.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the capital reserve fund. We've had studies done by engineers and stuff over the last 3 years, and have found that the building is starting to tip, if you will, towards the lake. So we've put some precautions in place to do that. But the Libby, there's really been nothing much done to it in the last 100 years. So now it's time to take the old wooden nail kegs with concrete in them that are supports underneath the building and make some changes. Yes, it's going to cost some money, but it is a unique building if anybody's been in it. The other issue is that the items that are in the building now are quite deteriorated, and that's because of the fact that there's been no heat, air conditioning, or humidity control within the building, which we need to do, even if we've already accepted 2 people's mounts. They are quite extensive. One collection has every North American mammal in some type of either full mount or partial mount. But these are museum quality pieces. They need to be protected, and if we do accept it, we need a place to store stuff. We need a place so we can rotate the materials within the building. And we need the materials that are in the building right now to be reconditioned. It's going to cost some money. So the townspeople need to understand that it will cost some funding in the future to bring this museum up to where it should be. And the quality of materials that we want in it, I think, are very important. In order to do that, we've got to make some major changes eventually in that building.
Linda?
Yes, I definitely support the $300,000 warrant article, which will be spent to renovate, expand, and repair the Libby Museum. As Dave said, we know in order to open that building in the spring, we're going to need to tighten the tie rods that we put up in the attic to hold that building together. And we were supposed to be tightening them every year. We haven't. We need to go up there and do that. There is a wall in which we have water coming down and moisture, and the plaster's coming off. We're going to have to fix that before we open in spring. And it's a dirt floor with those barrels and on stone, and we're going to have to go in and put shims on and make sure it's level and the floor is supported. So for those reasons, I absolutely support that $300,000. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't know how much more repair needs to be done and what I call is just to maintain the building. Whatever is not used can go for either a major repair, a renovation, or renovation and expansion. And one of the things I do when I have an issue like this, I go back and look at the way the voters have voted in the past. In 2013, we had a warrant article for $100,000, and we split it between the library and the Libby. That passed by 79%. In 2015, we had a warrant article for $200,000, which is the warrant article in which we put those tie rods in the ceiling. That passed by 84%. In 2018, we had a feasibility study for the purpose of conducting a feasibility study on the design option to best accommodate both the current Libby collection and the addition to it by improving and/or expanding the existing historic museum building. That was for $75,000. 50% of it was by a grant from a foundation, and 25% was by the taxpayers. That passed by 72%. When we started to look at warrant articles, the board was presented with a warrant article to do a renovation and expansion to the Libby Museum for $2.8 million. I did not support that warrant article. I didn't support it because I didn't feel like we had all of the operating costs that we were going to incur because of expanding and the heating of that facility. I wasn't sure that we had all the capital costs. Well, why would I say that? Well, because the architect came in June and was running quickly to get all this material to us. The second thing was, we have the Friends of the Libby Museum, and they had not really started a major capital campaign. They had gotten some money. I don't believe that this project should go through without some significant private funding, similar to what happened in the library. When I looked at the amount the Friends had raised and what was being asked for the voters, it was a $2.1 million bond issue. I couldn't support it. I couldn't support it because of its impact on the operating budget going forward. So I voted against that. The board decided not to put it on the warrant, but decided to put this $300,000 capital reserve account. When we see the vote on that, we'll also have another look at whether the voters really are in support of moving forward on this building. It'll give me another signal on looking at where we need to go. I think it's a gem of a building and a collection. I went there as a child. My children have gone there. My grandchildren have gone there. They've gone to programs there. And as Luke said, it's an important asset of our community. We will find a way to upgrade it. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be yet.
All right, another question for the selectmen, and if we can start with you, Dave, on this. Would you be willing to build a community recreation center that would include, but not be limited to, a swimming pool and gymnasium, something along the scale of the public library of the Nick or even the Abenaki recreation area? I believe the citizens of Wolfeboro will be willing to support a candidate who pledged to work hard in that direction. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've not seen any plans for a swimming pool yet, but that's interesting. As Linda had mentioned earlier, I think the Girl Scouts did an excellent idea, had an excellent presentation about the electric light building down on Lena Street. That seems to be a building that we definitely are going to look at. We all toured the present community center, which we were quite surprised at that tour. There were a lot of negatives with some positives. But again, depending on what happens with the warrant article that the Girl Scouts presented, we'll take a look at that. But in reference to a swimming pool and stuff, I've not seen anything, and that to me means some major construction and also some major maintenance. And that, again, will just drive up our costs as far as tax impact. That would be something that we'd have to look at. But I've seen nothing at that size or character yet.
Linda?
I definitely support the town building a community center. I'd like to see the design that will come out of, and the feasibility study, if the warrant article for $25,000 passes, that the Girl Scouts put on the warrant article. I would not be in support of a pool. I'm a swimmer. I take water aerobics back at Back Bay Rehab. I love it. But if this town's going to have a pool, I think it needs to be a 501c3 designed similar to the Nick, and that group of people came out and raised the money. They put money aside to maintain it, and that's the model I'd like to see for a swimming pool. I support a community center, but I also know that there is the public safety building that we're working on right now. That came in at $11.9 million, and obviously we will not put it out at that level. And we're looking, and Dave's working on that committee to find another site. But the public safety building we have been looking at and has been on our capital improvement plan for probably about 8 years. Wouldn't you think that's right, Tom? 8 years, the public safety building, or is it even longer?
I was to say at least.
Yeah. And that needs to be done. And so we're going to need to balance a Libby Museum, a public safety building, and a community center, because we aren't going to be able to afford them all. So yes, I support a community center. I'd love that to happen, but I'm going to take a look at the impact of those 3 projects on our tax rate.
Luke?
I do support a community center. I feel like, in a lot of ways that we have a lot of community centers here in town. This building and this room being one of them. I mean, this is a beautiful building for all kinds of events. We have a new library that has a lot of facilities. We will have a public safety building that will have facilities. And we have other buildings in town, including the Arts Center at Kingswood. They're all community-related things. Community center down the road, certainly. We do have the public safety building coming up. That's going to be a large expenditure. What I like to see is what Linda talked about with the Nick, having a company take on maybe a pool or something like that, or maybe attracting another hotel or something in the town that wants to put a pool in a facility and bring in more business into Wolfeboro as well. And that could be used by the community as well for something like that, a pool in that capacity. At some point we have to be, we got to look at costs, and we just finished the library, and we have other major projects down the pipeline, and potentially Libby and other things like that as well. And at some point, it's going to raise the tax rate, slowly, and we got to be fiscally responsible. And if we can put it as part of the master plan and frame it in a timeline that doesn't impact the tax rate as much, I'm in support of a community center. But I think we need to look at everything we got going on and identify the key priorities, and that being, public safety first.
All right, well, along those lines, we talked about public safety building, having a big dollar sign on it, potentially down the road, Libby Community Center. We also have the rapid infiltration basin system that we voted on several years ago. Floated a fairly expensive bond on that. The system did not work as anticipated. We were able to recapture a good chunk of that money, some of which we spent to design a new system. What's your thoughts on replacing or supplementing the rapid infiltration basin system that we have? And we're going to start with Linda on that one. I think you were next.
I have spent a number of days walking around the rapid infiltration basin site. I was part of the lawsuit. We were able to get $7 million on that lawsuit. We had to pay $2 million to the lawyer, but let me tell you, it was worth it because we got the 7. And we've taken that money and bit by bit, with an administrative order by consent, designed a new system up on that same parcel of land, still using the rapid infiltration basins. We've done a number of pilots, and the pilots that we have done will stay there once the permanent fix goes in. We are now taking the water that had come out of the side of the hill, and we're putting it in pipes and moving it down back into the earth to let it come out through the natural wetlands, the way the site was designed. I am hoping, and I cannot guarantee, but I'm hoping that we have most of the money, if not all of the money, to finish that RIB without coming back to the taxpayers. I am in support of keeping the spray fields, because we see what happens if something doesn't work. We always can get rid of some of our effluent with the spray fields, and I think that is the redundancy I support. So I am really hoping that you, the voters and taxpayers, will not have to pay anything more for those RIBs, rapid infiltration basins, because we went and sued and went through the lawsuit and got a significant amount of your money back in order to come up with another solution.
Luke?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with Linda. I think I was asked almost this very same question in 2015 about the system, and my knowledge back then was a lot less than it is now. You know, the spray fields, we have to continue keeping that as an option, you know, for backup. You know, the board, when I was on the board, you know, many discussions with Dave Ford and different engineers on, you know, what they're implementing now, and the board's been steadfast in resolving this issue, you know, for the last 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
So I completely support what they've been doing, and I wouldn't do anything differently other than, you know, work with the board, and I completely agree with Linda on this. So.
Dave?
Yeah, since we found out that we had some issues, as Linda said, I wasn't involved in it right at the beginning, but certainly got involved in the middle of it. But we've been working with the state, with the Department of Environmental Services, to come up with a fix for what we have up there. We have what as Linda said, they call them seeps. The stuff is coming out of the ground up above where they said it was going to. It was supposed to come out underneath 19 Mile Brook and come up into the brook, all filtered out. So now we're working with DES to come up with a solution. We're pretty sure we have one. It's just a matter of permitting at this time. So that's ongoing, but as Linda said, hopefully we'll have an issue, that issue solved shortly.
All right. Luke, we'll start with you on this one. And the question is before opening locations up for someone new, the town gives hawkers and peddlers from previous years an option to automatically renew by applying. Do you agree with that process? Basically, should be a seniority type process.
That's how it's always been done, and I think it gives people that are in business that have one the ability to renew. You know, it becomes a business for somebody, and those spots are, you know, very attractable to a lot of people. So, you know, if they get it, if it comes available and someone signs up for it and gets it, they should get first right of refusal.
Dave?
Well, I think we've had that for quite a few years now, and there have been some turnovers in a couple of the sites. But as most of you know, Hot Dog Bob has had the lakefront position for many years, and again, with the agreements that we have with these hawkers and peddlers, if they don't renew by a certain date and, you know, give the town a check for that position, then they lose it and it goes to whoever has applied. And I'm in agreement the way it's set up right now.
Linda?
Yeah, this hawkers and peddlers is a ordinance, one of the town ordinance. I was not on the board. You know, I've been on for about 15 years now. It was created before my time. There has been turnover. In fact, there have been some years where we have a space, we have one applicant and they've gotten it. So it has become more popular. There is also a provision of it in the statute or in the ordinance that you can't be within 100 feet of another business selling the same product. And we've had some issues with that and where that 100 feet is and where the radius is. At one point, we had somebody selling ice cream too close to the bubble, and was it really ice cream or was it some kind of a custard? So we've had, you know, issues. But it's important that we keep them far enough away that we aren't competing with the businesses who are there year-round. So I feel like we have had turnover. We have somebody selling flowers now in front of Kate Park. That has had, it was lobster rolls, it was a bakery. So we are getting those turnovers, so there is the opportunity. You may have to just wait a couple of years. So I support the ordinance.
All right, well, back to the supervisors, and we'll start with you, Tom. The voting laws are fairly complicated, and how familiar with you are there? What steps have you taken to familiarize yourself with the voting laws, and have you gone to any training, and would you be willing to go to training in the future?
They are very complicated. At least I find them to be very complicated, and I think most people who would pick up some of these books would as well. Yes, there's a variety of training available that I've been able to take part in the past year, in an effort to, you know, number one, stay current, because laws change. But I think overall, once you get into the system and have a little bit of familiarity with it, the changes tend to be incremental rather than wholesale, if you will. So it's a little easier to keep up with. But I would continue to attend trainings as they occur. We've had the good fortune to have some of them right here in this room over the past couple of years. We've also been able to attend some trainings in Concord, either at the Secretary of State's office or the Attorney General's office. Again, the two, probably the Secretary of State more so, the primary agencies at the state level will deal with election matters. Yeah, it's takes some effort to stay on top of it, but the opportunity is there, and I'd like to be able to continue to do so.
Jeannie?
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's a little more than actually what I had thought. Just going in on the web and downloading some of these things and reading, and there's just all these RSAs and and add almost with every line here. But like Tom, I'm sure you're given the opportunity to train and to learn it, and I'm up for that. I definitely would enjoy that, and I said I would give it 200%. But I'm sure it's a training that you have to be involved in, a willingness to do that training.
Thanks. So back to the selectmen, and we'll probably end with the $28 million question. So we have an operating budget that the Board of Selectmen unanimously recommended, as did the Budget Committee. What are your thoughts on the budget? Do you think it's where it should be, too high, too low, a good balance? And Dave, we'll start with you.
I think as we said earlier, it's been a good balance as far as we're concerned, and I think the Budget Committee felt the same way. But I think it's a reasonable budget. I don't think, as one of our people on the Budget Committee calls slush funds, I don't think we have many of those in there. At the end of the year, we come out pretty close. We sometimes have a surplus. That's quite often the case. That's good management amongst our town manager and the people we have running the different departments. So I think it's where it should be. And I think Linda mentioned the percentages and stuff. I think they're certainly reasonable in today's world, the way things are changing up and down. I think we have a pretty a good budget that we feel we can work with.
Linda?
Yes, I think we did a great job on the operating budget, and let me give you some increases and decreases. The general fund, which is at $14,209,737, increased $158,509 this year. That's the 1.3. The Water Enterprise Fund, which is a $1.8 million budget, increased by $17,817. That was a 0.98% increase. The Electric Enterprise Fund is a $10 million budget. It decreased by $110,187. Now that looks like a big decrease in stuff, but that really has to do with the amount of electricity that we had to purchase. It isn't from a big savings somewhere else. The Sewer Enterprise Fund, which is 1.7, it increased by $11,807. The Pop Whalen Enterprise Fund, we changed the reallocation of administrative costs, and it decreased by $35,148. So and then the overall budget, adding all those subtractions, the overall budget increased by $42,798, or a 0.15%. I think that's very good for a year. So, yes, I support the budget. I think we did it. I think the Budget Committee did an excellent job.
Luke?
Well, can you really state all that? I mean, knowing that Linda and Dave and Paul and Brad went through the budget, and knowing what the selectmen go through in that book and the Budget Committee, I think it looks like a good budget to me, and I support it.
Is there any questions that any of you have that didn't get asked? Yes, ma'am. So the question is, what's your position regarding the maintenance and preservation of the town docks? Maintenance and development of the town docks. Dave?
Yeah, I can help you with that one. I'm on that committee. We have two things happening. This year, there's a warrant article to rebuild the town docks as they exist. The top deckings on those are pressure treated. They're getting very splintery. The posts that they tie up to are getting quite worn. They get replaced at least a couple dozen every year. So we're this year asking that we redeck docks that are there and repost them, at least from the ramp over towards this side of the park. That's one thing that's going to be done. The other thing, they did a study, and we have a crib dock system from the bridge all the way to where the Mount Washington comes in, where that's all concrete stamped walkway, and there's a nice fence there. That all has to be taken apart and rebuilt within the next few years. We anticipate with the capital reserve fund that we have and that we're going to add to, extending the docks in 2 years. They're going to extend out another approximately 80 feet, along with changing the Mount Washington dock the way the mount comes in. He wants to come in straight on instead of at an angle, because when we have prevailing winds, northeast winds, he gets pushed towards Brewster if he tries to back out. So all of those things are in the works. We already have a design. We've already been in touch with DES as far as permitting. They're all in favor. All we have to do is submit the permit and the plans. So that is ongoing. You'll see some work down there, hopefully within the next 2 years. This coming year with the surfacing of the docks, then the expansion, and then the year after next will be the crib work that's on the side going up the river.
And Linda and Luke?
That's in the budget, and there's a couple of warrant articles to that.
Dave did an excellent job explaining it. He is the chairman of that committee. I sat on it for a year or two, and periodically the selectmen switch committees, so I went off at that point. I definitely support it. I also support the phasing projects. We're doing phase one, which are the 2 docks, the 4 docks, the left-hand side looking at the docks from the parking lot. Then we're going to do the other docks and extend them. Then we're going to do the Mount Washington. We're going to do the Smith River. We've got the parking lot that also needs to be done. And right now we're doing the bathrooms down there. So this will be a multi-year project. This year we're going to use some of our capital reserve funds to support the 4 docks being resurfaced. We're also going to apply for a grant from the fishery something or other, Tier 1 grant, which will help, could help us give us funds to help us resurface those docks. We would apply for another grant the following year. One of the things the town staff, I think, does an excellent job is to look for other grants that we might be able to have to help support us in this. So, 1, I like the fact we have a capital reserve account. 2, we're doing it in a phase process, and by the time we're done, that we will have dealt with every area. And 3, we're going out and applying for a grant to help the taxpayer in getting this work done.
And Luke?
Yeah, and to just add to that, because those are all the great points, you know, it's town docks are another gateway into Wolfeboro, and we have people that come here, boating here, that come into town and, you know, use those docks and, you know, bring in more resources. And they use our facilities and they dine at our restaurants and they go out at night, and it's just another avenue to get people into Wolfeboro. And it's, you know, when you pull into the docks, that's kind of like one of the first things you see is dockside restaurant and the nice stamped area of concrete that's all been redone, and the bridge that's been kind of completed. And then you have the town docks, which are aged and they're getting older, and you have that seat along the town docks that's aged as well. But when that's all done, it's going to be just another part of entrance into Wolfeboro. It's going to look bright and vibrant, and when it's resurfaced, it'll be good. I mean, there were some structural issues there that have been taken care of, and there's more to be done. I completely support anything we can do to expand those docks and get more people in there. As a boater on a Saturday in June or July, you could sit out there for a half an hour, 45 minutes waiting for a spot. And those are people that we're not capturing, getting them in to dine in our restaurants and spend money in our town. So I think it's a great addition to Wolfeboro to expand those docks and to revitalize them at the same time.
All right, thank you. Did you have a quick question? And this would be the last one. Have to be quick. So I think the question is he's in favor of having an administrative facilities manager. And moving past that, we're now down to about 6 minutes, and we have 5 of you. So that leaves you each about a minute to just give a summary. And we started with Dave, so we'll start with this end and we'll work down to Dave.
Okay.
So you're up a minute, 2 max.
I just want to say this position is a very important position in town, and I will give it 200%. I'm willing to learn, and I hope I have your vote. And thank everyone for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Tom.
I'd just like to reiterate, I mean, just to go back to the previous question for us about the state laws being complicated and so forth. My experience, such as it is, I think it boils down to 2 things. Number one, when we register someone new or do an address change or a name change, we need to prove who you you are who you say you are, and number two, that you live where you say you live. And all of those rules and regs and so forth seem to stem from that. And there's a bunch of different ways you can accomplish both of those and so forth. Be that as it may, again, I'd appreciate your support on the 10th. If I can do a quick public service announcement, the supervisors will be in session this Saturday at 10 o'clock downstairs in this building. If you have a new voter prior to town meeting, or an address change or a name change or anything along those lines, come see us from 10 to 10:30 and we'll take care of it. Thanks.
Thanks. Luke?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thanks to the Chamber and Mary DeVries for hosting this again, and for everyone turning out. You know, I ask for your vote on March 10th, and you know, it's been an enjoyable experience here tonight, hearing the questions. You know, I come from a business background, and you know, I love Wolfeboro. I enjoy being here. I chose to come back here after college and start a business and be part of the community, and I will continue serving. So I would look forward to Election Day, and I would appreciate your support, your vote.
And Linda?
Yes, if you have any further questions, my town email is listed on the town website, and I would be willing to talk to any of you about any of the Warren articles. You can call me on my phone. I did bring, now I made this myself. I'm learning publishing, but this pamphlet gives you my government experience, my experience in different areas, and my community service over the year. I have about 20 of them here if anybody would like that information. That is, you may pick one up. I have the time, I have the energy, and I have the commitment to do the job as selectman. So in closing, if you want a selectman who will work to maintain Wolfeboro's unique character, listen to all sides of an issue, build consensus, solve problems, and is experienced and frugal, please vote for Linda Murray on March 10th.
Dave, you want to close it out?
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming tonight, and I would appreciate your vote on March 10th. I think I have experience, I have the knowledge, I have the time to devote to the town, which, as you heard earlier, I have been here for some time and certainly appreciate this area. Thank you.
And well, thank you all for coming. We get in just under our 7 o'clock deadline. Again, don't forget to vote on March 10th for these 5 terrific candidates. Thank you all.
Okay.
Good luck.
I knew you were going to win.
Oh, I don't know.